Hello and welcome to another episode of Musical Musings. I'm joined by a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Danny Horovitz, and I'm a singer-songwriter from Toronto, Ontario. Very nice to see you.
Thank you for joining me today, first of all.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So the first question would be, who is your biggest influence growing up? Who inspired you to get into music?
Well, we jump right into it. I can tell you that by far, my biggest influences were the Beatles, and they still are to this day, my favorites. So let's put them right away at the top.
Mhm.
Beyond that, it's a lot of the singer-songwriters from the 70s that you probably already know. I love Leonard Cohen. He might be like on an individual level my hero. I think he's the best lyricist of all time. I also really love Billy Joel, Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, and I love bands that really use a lot of like great melodies and harmonies, like the Beach Boys or CCR. So I think if you kind of combine the supreme like melodic harmony sound with great storytelling, I think that's kind of my influences, which for obvious reasons is why the Beatles are number one.
Ah,
Not that that makes
so
me unique in the world. I mean, I think everyone loves those guys.
to be fair, I haven't heard much of them. That might have been because of the era I grew up in.
You haven't heard much of the Beatles?
Not really. I grew up on Paramore, Blink 182, stuff like that.
I mean, I guess technically I did as well. I just wasn't listening to it. I was listening. I grew up listening to the oldies station here in Toronto,
Yeah.
radio station called 1050 Chum AM radio. And I think that's where I get a lot of my sensibilities. When I was a kid, my dad loved oldies, and we were listening to a lot of oldies stations. My grandfather, who was a watchmaker by trade, had a record store in Montreal when I was a kid. So I think my house was full of all these old records and eventually CDs, and we would listen to the oldies station. And so I think that's where I get a lot of my sensibilities from. So no disrespect to Paramore or Blink 182, they were fine bands, but I was listening to like Billy Joel.
You see, I kind of feel that I've missed out on that part of music, to be fair. So I've actually been listening to some of your stuff and actually getting into that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's got that sound. I mean, I certainly, we could take after this call, I can give you a whole bunch of bands to listen to, but the ones I mentioned, I'll throw Fleetwood Mac in there right now. I throw Eric Clapton in there right now. Lots of good stuff.
Ah. So were your parents supportive of sort of your music career going forward?
Uh, yeah, I think they were always supportive of it as a side project, and it kind of is a side project. In Canada, it's very tough to make it as a musician. You know, you could spend years or decades sleeping on people's couches if you wanted to pursue it with vigor.
Mhm.
So they were always supportive of it as a side project, encouraging me to go to school, which I did, get a good education, which I did. Now I've got a day job. I work at a bank. I'm a lawyer by training, and on the side, I write and record music. And there's a great Onion headline. You know, the Onion, the satirical newspaper.
Yep.
There's a great Onion headline, something along the lines of parents finally encourage son to pursue hopes and dreams after he's acquired an exhausting 80-hour week job.
Ah.
It's that's the cynical view of it, but the short answer is yeah, they were and are supportive of my music. I just think, like a lot of parents, they were always worried about me doing it full time, and maybe there was some justification in that, you know.
Exactly. I mean, I can relate to that on a personal level with starting this podcast because obviously my family want me to succeed, but
Yeah,
obviously there's a lot of podcasts out there. So I've got to cut my teeth doing interviews like this and see how far I can go.
I think that's it. Henry David Thoreau talked about the idea of living the life that you've imagined in Walden, and he also wrote, "Let not to get a living be thy trade, but thy sport." Right. So you want your life to be all about the things that you love, and you want to live the life you've imagined. I think that's really good. On a more practical level, you have to be able to do the thing you love just for its own sake, because in case my music doesn't take off or something like that, at least I have it as something that I love doing, and that's enough. That has to be enough, you know.
I get you, yeah. So going back to your influences, what was the first concert you actually went to as a fan?
I went to see Eric Clapton as a kid, as a fan. That my family took me to see Eric Clapton, and before I was a songwriter, I wanted to be a really great guitarist. I never became a great guitarist. I'm still a terrible guitarist. Instead, I focused on songwriting. But I loved Eric Clapton, and his was the first concert I saw.
Uh, so what are some of your earliest memories of music apart from what you said about obviously listening to the oldie stations and
Well,
That
so my dad plays the guitar, or he played the guitar. I don't know if he does it as much anymore. And I have three brothers, and so he'd sit us down at the foot of his bed in my parents' bedroom, and like with his old acoustic guitar, start playing old songs, like old Beatles songs, or even some songs that he had written. And I think that is some of my, aside from listening to the records in my home, that's probably the most vibrant memory that I have that was routine as a kid. I also remember just randomly one day, very early when I was a kid, my father puts on a record. Do you know the song "She Drives Me Crazy" by Five Young Cannibals?
oh yeah, yeah.
For some reason, he like heard that he had heard that song, and he brought that song home and he played it for us. Me and my brothers, we were all really small. We were like jumping on the couch because it was such a funny song. We thought,
It has got a nice vibe to it.
yeah,
So obviously you said music is a side project now.
yeah.
Is the dream for it to get bigger for you?
If possible, that's my goal. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing with it. It's like I said, in Canada, a lot of us are weekend warriors, and even successful ones, even successful musicians don't do it full time. And so the right now it's like, let me open the imaginary door, walk inside, and take it with as much zeal as I can, pursue it with all my passion that I can, and I do. And so it's like a second full time job.
Hmm.
But the goal would be is if I can get my streams high enough, my followers high enough, then it could justify something more.
I understand. Obviously, I will tag your links in the description for my viewers.
Yeah, please do. And for all your viewers, if you haven't heard my stuff, please give it a shot. Go on Spotify, find me, listen to any of my songs. I'm really proud of them. I have a full album up that I just released earlier this year. I got more on the way, and they're only going to get better and better. I really I hope people give it a shot. I heard this thing, or I read this thing where there are fewer musicians that actually crack into the consciousness than ever before. And there's a few reasons for that. One is that in the world of streaming, all of the music that you're nostalgic for, the Blink-182s of the world, still make up mental real estate. Whereas in the old days, their singles would pass and go and something new would come in because you'd be listening on the radio. Now, because everything is happening all at once, the old and the new, what you love when you're younger, you can still listen to without having to expose yourself to new acts. And as a result of that, record labels take fewer chances on artists. And so now a smaller number of artists who do crack through are everywhere. So the biggest acts in the world are always being promoted, and there's fewer of them than there used to be. And so it's really hard for independent artists to get heard, even though ironically, it's easier for independent artists to record than ever before. So for all of your listeners, give me a chance. Start with any of my songs, really, and I hope I can persuade you to follow me and follow along.
I mean, I've got a question for you, more personal now. What is your favorite song you've ever written?
I think it's a song called "Free Tonight," which I wrote when I was a teenager. Most of the songs that I wrote back then and throughout the years have been, well, most songs I write are trash, and some of them I'm really proud of. But if I had to put a gun to my head right now, I'd say "Free Tonight" because it was written so long ago and I still play it and it still connects with me. And actually I pushed for it to be on this first album, even though it was an older song. And there's a few other songs. I have a song called "Love You to the End," which I also wrote around that time, that is going to be on an EP that I'm releasing next year. And there's a few other songs that I really love, but I guess just because they're so old and they've stuck with me in my heart all these years later, that those are probably the two that I love.
Okay, so you've mentioned you've got an EP coming out in the near future.
Yeah.
Have you got more plans to write more after that, or?
Yeah, well, I have this enormous back catalog for writing through the years. And so now I just put out this album. Most people, when they hear my music, I think most people comment most either on the song "The Scar" or "Seasons Change." Those are the two songs that I probably get the most comments on so far. So I have this back catalog of songs that I've written, and I'm still writing. I picked up a little piano along the way. I'm sitting down, really inspired by being exposed to new artists online and having my own life experiences. So I'm writing more songs. I've got 2 EPs coming out, one in the fall, which is going to be an EP of 4 songs, kind of a progression from dark to light. So like really like dark emotions, really, the worst kind of humanity. And then each song gets progressively lighter until the final song is about the beauty of being able to be vulnerable with somebody. And that's like, so the EP is called "The Candle is Worth the Game," because life continues to be worth living despite all the hardships. The cost of living, which is life, is worth it because there's such beauty at the end of the day. The second EP is just a little more rock focused, just a little more like traditional rock, folk rock songs. And that's going to come out in early 2023. And they're both going to sound great. All of the songs have finished recording. They're being mixed right now. I'm working with visual artists. One is going to be kind of an oil painting style visual. The other one is going to be a little bit more pop art with photographs. And I'm really, really proud of this next song. I think we did even better than the first set of songs. We've added strings. I used a harmony expert to help me really nail the harmonies down. We've added in like an extra mixer to mix one or two of the songs to make it sound like just give a little more variety. And in addition to that, I've written a bunch of songs over the last year that I'm currently home demoing it, making into demos at home. And I'm going to record this fall and next winter those songs so that we can then get it mixed next summer and release the following year. So it's all about getting a pipeline, now that I'm recording music, and it took me so many years to really get into the studio, now I want to have a pipeline and a process. So throughout the year, it's like, write the songs all throughout the year. By the end of June or end of July, the songs that I've written, complemented with some of my back catalog songs, go into a home demo kit. Then we record November, December, January, February, March, maybe April. We add strings. Then we mix it, and the whole process starts again. Then I release in the fall. And so it's this beautiful cycle. I'm really proud. I'm really happy it's a part of my life, and I'm proud of the end results.
Thank you for that insight into that. I actually have a couple of questions from viewers.
Yeah.
One wanted to know what your go-to drink is when you're recording.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that be?
My go-to drink when I'm recording is probably coffee, because I just love coffee.
Caffeine.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be it. And water. When I'm writing and recording, it's usually something that's good for my voice. Actually, tea or water while I'm actually recording. While I'm writing songs, it's probably a lot of coffee. Sometimes I'll just get up in the morning, go to the piano or my guitar, and just start strumming along. And then when I'm playing music, it's probably beer. Just good old beer.
Yeah, standard choice. Very good choice.
Yeah.
Another viewer also asked, who was your style inspiration for the way you look when you're on stage and stuff?
I don't have one. I just think jeans and a t-shirt is always a good look.
It is.
But thank you for that question and for thinking that I have a style.
That's why I said to my viewers, I'll always ask what they want to know. So if anyone has other questions for you after this interview airs, I'll always welcome you back for another part if you'd be willing to do that.
I'd love that for sure. I will say that when I did photography for for the album, we did photography, and I used to keep my hair pretty short. I've got this curly hair that I was always like, what's with this curly hair? You can't do anything with it. And so I grew it out, and I was talking with my photographer, a really lovely, amazing photographer named Denise Grant, who's one of Canada's best photographers. And I got my hair cut, and she's like, but was very upset with me on the phone and said, no, now we have to delay the photography shoot by another 2 months. Long hair is rock and roll, and curly hair is great, but short hair is too corporate, and that's not what we're going for. So maybe that's the one stylistic answer I'd say. And now that I've started growing out my hair longer, it's not even super long, but it's just long enough that the curls come in. I think it's fun and kind of cool.
So where do you see your music progressing over the next, should we say, 5 years?
Well, I want to grow my streams. I want to get more listeners, people to follow me. I've only just started releasing music. So hopefully in 5 years, I've had I know for sure I'm gonna have another couple of releases, whether the EPs or albums, but let's say moving from 10 songs recorded and streamed online to like 40, let's say, right? So 4 separate releases. Every time I put out an album, I get a spike in listens and a spike in streams. And so, I'm currently at something like, I don't know, let's say 2,000 followers on Spotify. In 5 years, can I double that? That would be great. If more, all the better. I also would just love to have people in the industry, my peers who are recording and writing and playing, listen to it, like it, and get to know them. I don't want to go out there and say, well, in 5 years, my plan is to quit my job and do this. Not because I don't think that would be great, but because it's not realistic. And although I'm so proud of the music that I've written and so happy with the work I've done, I want to manage my expectations. And then if it happens and I get to be a full-time singer-songwriter, I mean, that would be the best, obviously. It's about managing my expectations so that I stay happy and not dissatisfied with, my musical career, because I think the reason I like my music is because I just love writing songs for me. And now I just want to share them. And if I start setting goals that are unrealistic, then I might, I don't know, write songs for the wrong reasons, play songs for the wrong reasons,
So, would you say that any school music teachers or anybody like that had a big influence on
Uh,
you? Or
well, songwriting, my dad, like I said, wrote songs. And so that was big. When I was in high school, I had a friend named Stuart, and he was a really great singer-songwriter. I think he was the first person I knew who played an instrument that wrote his own stuff. And I said, like, well, why don't he said one day he doesn't do covers. I said, what do you mean you don't do covers? And he said, well, I write my own stuff. And over time, I just stopped playing other people's music. And I thought that was really instructive. I didn't know I could write my own music. I didn't know how that worked.
uh,
When I was a small kid, not that small, like from the ages of 8 to 12, let's say, I was in the school choir. And I learned a lot about singing and a lot about music from there as well. And I joined the school choir. It's a long story, but basically I joined the school choir because that's where I thought all the girls were, and they were.
so did it work? Did you find a girl?
No, it did not, because I was a coward, and it did nothing for my romantic life. But I learned a thing or two about music.
I suppose that's the second best thing, or the best thing, depending on whichever way you look at it.
That's right. Yeah.
So obviously, you say you did choir. Would you say that really improved your vocal range as well as other things?
Maybe. So the two reasons why I didn't pursue the music for so many years is I was embarrassed about like I said, my musical playing, which I realized I could solve just by hiring professional musicians to take the music that I wrote and play it better in the studio. But I was also very self-conscious of my singing. You know, I don't have a great Robert Plant-like voice. I think I sang like a normal person. But that said, a lot of the singers that I love, including the ones we mentioned, sing like regular people who just sound, you know, nice enough, and they write their own music. The choir did teach me about breathing, which was, I think, is really important for anyone who wants to sing. If you can develop an instinct for when to take a breath in a song, it won't sound like you're gasping for air the whole time. And that kills a lot of artists, both because it kills the momentum of the song and because it is an off sound to have. And you can sometimes hear it in performances.
I didn't even know that. So you've just sort of enlightened me on that subject too.
I think so. I mean, I could be wrong about it. I'm not a professional vocal coach, but I think breathing is among the most important things to be able to do when you're singing.
Going back to what you said just now regarding covers, if you had to pick one song to cover for the rest of your life and it had to stay in your sets, what would it be?
Let It Be.
That was a very quick answer. I'm impressed.
I had to go with the first answer that popped into my head, because it's not an easy question, and I could probably sit here for 10 minutes going back and forth. But I know that when I'm with friends, it's usually my first go-to song. Everybody knows it. Everybody likes it. Everybody sings along. If there's a piano, it's simple enough to play on the piano. If you're only on a guitar, it's simple enough to play on the guitar, and it's a feel-good song. So that's like my first instinct would be that one.
Okay, so a few questions to help my viewers get to know you as a person. Who is your biggest sort of person that you dislike their style, but you've learned from?
I don't know if there's anyone whose style I disliked. I can say that as a kid, I was always very confused by David Bowie because I didn't know who he was or what was it about. And as I've gotten older, I realized that what he was doing on some level was saying, I'm going to make the music that I love. And what I look like doesn't matter so much that I'm going to put an image out there that's a totally different, like a totally different art style every time, so that you can't nail down who I am and you have to pay attention to what it is that I'm playing. As a child, I was like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, who is this compared to this guy? How are they the same? You know? But I think that as an older, I really, really appreciate that. But I remember as a kid looking at different album covers and be like, wait, that's the same guy as this? You know?
So before I progress with more questions like that, are there any particular stories you want to tell us about your music, your career, anything like that?
I would only just pause for a moment and say how wonderful it is to collaborate with musicians. You know, I've been writing on my own and playing in my own in my room, and it took me forever to get into the studio. And then when I finally did, I've got this wonderful producer named Calvin and these wonderful musicians, in particular a guy named Sean who plays everything, the guitar, the bass, the piano. And I've got great drummers. John Foster worked on the first album, and Cole Anthony Humphreys, who worked on the second set of songs. When you get into the studio, you collaborate with them and you realize how much better your songs can be when really talented people put their hands on it and everybody's kind of talking about it, playing with it, doing their best. And I'm just so pleased with the results. And it would be improper for me to come on your show and not mention how great my collaborators were and how wonderful the collaboration process was. That's the best.
I really appreciate you giving us an insight into that side of it. Can we expect any sort of tours or live shows from you guys in the near sort of future?
Well, because I don't have a band behind me, it's hard to go on tour. And because I have a full-time job, it's hard to go on tour. I do play at bars around town, Toronto. I'll show up and I'll play a few songs. And I have a concert set in Toronto for October, which I know is a while away. But because I can't tour, I can only play real concerts so often. You asked me about a 5-year plan. In my dream, and not my expectations, but if I could have the streams in different regions enough that look like, oh wow, in these parts of England, I'm actually quite big and I'm getting, tens of thousands of streams every month, every day even, then that would justify me to go and take the time and go on tour between, different cities and play my songs. That would be a dream. But for now, unfortunately, no.
So you cited earlier, obviously, the Beatles as your sort of main influence. Are there any sort of unknown artists that you would say influenced you or lesser known?
There's an album by an American band called Girls. And I remember they had an album that came out. It was called, I think, Broken Hearts Club. And I'd never heard of them before. And I don't know how many albums they have. But I remember it was so good. There was like brass in it and the songwriting was really good. And I'd never heard of them before. What are the songs that I loved? I don't know. Just check out the whole EP. I think it's called Broken Hearts Club by a band called Girls. There's a song called "How Can I Say I Love You?" How can I say I love you now that you've told me you love me? Which I thought was a great writing. That was a band that probably nobody's ever heard of that I really loved. And then the other band that I thought nobody had ever heard of when I was younger was the Velvet Underground, but it turns out everybody had heard of them, and so that doesn't count.
Thank you for obviously again explaining that side of it. Would you say music has affected you on a personal level and changed who you are as a person?
That's a good question. I hope so. I don't know. How can I say? Because I don't know what I would be like without music, but I hope so.
Is there anybody else you'd like to cite as a positive influence in your life?
Yeah, I've got a really great group of friends, and I think it's so important to have people in your life that really care about you, for you. That was sort of the theme of the song "This Side of the Looking Glass" off of my current album. It's like you have to like yourself, and so much of life is about perspective. The world is exactly as it is. There's no mysteries, there's no secrets. So it's how you choose to see things, and how you choose to see things is so heavily influenced by who you choose, and you always get the choice to keep in your life. So, with your family and with your friends, you got to make sure that the people you're keeping in your life are like great. Now, family is tougher because they're your family no matter what. And if you're lucky, you're lucky. And if you're not, you have to make some difficult decisions. But with friends, it's really your choice. And if people are, if people reflect back in you the best qualities, you see yourself in them, then keep them in your life, and they're really valuable. And I'm lucky. So I would say, besides music, just a positive influence to keep going, being me, and not worry about what the world thinks about me or my music, because people that I so respect and so love have no reason to care about me, and they do. That is probably the biggest boost that I can think of.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you would like to give us story-wise before I give you any more viewer questions?
Story-wise,
like anyone you've met particularly that you admired or anything like that?
You know what I would say is really cool? So on the first album, we hired a studio drummer named John Foster. He's excellent. He works with all kinds of artists, and he was out in LA when we were working on the second set of songs. So there's a local band in Toronto called the OBGMs. They're like a hip hop rock band. They're excellent. And they were shortlisted for a very important prize called the Polaris Prize, which is like Canada's top music prize. They're wonderful. And their drummer, Kola, who I mentioned before, worked in the same recording studio or recorded their albums in the same studio as I did. And so my producer called him up. And I think what was so cool is to go from like this drummer who was like a very studio drummer with a certain kind of sound to like a performative rock drummer with a different kind of sound. I didn't really appreciate how much even though I drummed in high school in like the high school band, I didn't appreciate how much drumming influences the sound of a song. And I'm going to add the bass in there too. That, you know, the first thing that we recorded on all the albums was drums and bass. And to me, it changed the character of the song. It was one of the things we talked about the most, the speed, the energy, the drive. And in some cases, it became like the fuller version of the song that I had written. And in other cases, the dynamic of the song changed completely. Not just between these two drummers, but also between what I thought I had written and what I had actually written. So I mentioned the song Seasons Change and Scar that people come up to me and say that they really connect with. I mentioned the song Free Tonight, which I really connect with. And This Side of the Looking Glass, which is all the story about loving yourself. There's a song called Care for You, which I'd written as sort of a kind of sweet romantic song on the acoustic guitar. But with the drumming and the bass, it became kind of a funkier, almost like Roadhouse, almost like a bluesier song. And now it's almost a completely different song, even though it's exactly the same song, just the energy is different. And I love it and I'm here for it. And so that's an example of how the rhythm section can just change a song. And that was new to me, not having really been in a recording studio, having only really played in a performance.
Okay, so on the subject of that, you've obviously mentioned certain songs and how you connect with them emotionally and how other people connect with them.
Yeah.
What is the favorite message that you've got behind any of your songs that you've written?
I have, at the end of my first album, 2 songs called Nothing Ever Ends and Passing Through. Mm-hmm. And in very different ways, they have the exact same message, which is that, one day we're all going to leave this world. And so you have to treat other people as kindly as you can, because that's all that there is, just who you leave behind, who is here in your life now and who you leave behind. And Nothing Ever Ends is sort of a sarcastic song. Somewhat inspired by the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. You know, that whole thing where a guy goes into the desert and he sees the ruins of a statue, and the statue says, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on ye mighty in despair." But the guy's like, "What despair? There's nothing here. You know, all glory is fleeting." And Passing Through is much more of a lullaby, a much sweeter song, but with the same idea, you know, that like all we ever really have is who we leave behind. Memory is a baton, so share the things you find. You know, it's a handoff. And I think, you know, I've got songs about relationships and songs about ideas of the mind, but probably the most important message that I have is that, you know, is take care of the people around you. And it's not just good for when you depart this world, but also in the meantime while you're here, as we talked about. Mm-hmm. I will only add, if I can, that I heard Billy Joel in an interview one time saying that it's all well and good to have a message in your song, but if the songs aren't good, I'm not listening anyway. And I really believe that. I really think that if songs aren't good, it doesn't really matter what you're saying because no one's listening. And I try to write the best songs that I can. I try to write songs that I want to listen to, that I want to play. I can't know the minds and hearts of other people. I only know that I'm not an insane person, and that there are other people who like the music I like. So maybe they'll like music that I write that I like. And so beyond any of the messages of the songs, I'm not writing these songs to preach anybody any messages. I'm just writing songs that have a great melody, that speak to me, and then a story that I think fits the energy of the songs I've written. And honestly, all I care about is people listening to it and if they like it, and whatever it means to them, I'm okay with. Whatever it means, I just want people to listen to them and hopefully like it.
Thank you for that very detailed explanation. I really enjoyed that myself, and I hope my viewers will too.
I hope so. Thank you.
On a lighter note, I'd like to touch on how I found you, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
I actually found you through TikTok.
Right.
And I thought, I really like this dude's voice. I wondered if he'd be interested in coming on the show. And obviously, I would like to give you the opportunity now to promote your socials and that, if you'd like to.
I'd love to, yeah. So thank you for finding me on TikTok. TikTok is kind of a wild place because you don't know, someone who doesn't follow you at all scrolls through and it's on their page. I'm so happy you liked it, and I'm so happy you followed me when I followed you back, and now we've had a chance to connect. So Danny Horowitz, which I'm sure will be written in your description, but it's
Yep.
DanyHorovitz. DanyHorovitz. And I'm everywhere at Danny Horowitz. On Instagram, where I'm most active. I'm getting more active on TikTok. Getting a little more active on TikTok. On Facebook, Danny Horowitz Music. But most importantly, most importantly, on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your music. If you're on Spotify, the nice thing is that you can follow me. Then when I have new music that comes out, you'll get those releases in your weekly radar. So please, if you'd like, follow me on TikTok. Follow me. I have a YouTube channel too, although I'm way less. People seem to be less on my YouTube than they are on my Instagram and TikTok. But follow me on all the social medias if you can. But mostly, if you can only do one thing, go on Spotify or Apple Music. Check out my music. If you like my music, click that like button. Follow on Spotify, and feel free to reach out to me. Right now, I'm so independent that if people reach out to me, I'm personally handling my account. So you have the opportunity to like really connect with me, which I think is kind of cool.
I can testify to that, can't I?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And I have people reach out to me, and it's very, very nice, and it feels validating and warm, but also it's just kind of always fun and cool to meet new people and hear their thoughts and discuss things. So find me on social media, but mostly please just listen to the music, because that's what it's all about.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time so far.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I do have a few light-hearted questions from my viewers, if I may.
I'd love to, yeah.
One viewer wants to know, in your view, does pineapple belong on pizza?
100%. No, not even a question.
Exactly. Someone agrees with us. It's fine.
Yeah. In fact, Hawaiian pizza, which is ham and pineapple on pizza, I believe was invented in Canada by a Greek immigrant who came to Canada and thought it was a good idea. And he was right. It's terrific.
Another one is, who would be your dream dinner party, dead or alive? You can pick 3 other musicians.
Do they have to be musicians?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then I would say Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison.
Just those.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if there's a million good ones, but and the thing is, I would want to have them each individually.
Huh?
You're gonna do one-on-one dinners with each of them.
Good plan.
And then if there's a 4th one, obviously Ringo would be the 4th one.
We can grant you a 4th one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So obviously you were saying about, obviously you're getting more active on TikTok now. Yeah. Would you say that that's helped musicians like you or hindered you in some ways? Because like you said, we can still get access to our old favorites and we can make TikToks to those.
TikTok is trickier than Instagram, because Instagram just requires a picture and a short description. But it seems like it's easier for people to go to my music directly from TikTok. So once I make a video and they go onto my page, I have them a little link that clicks right to my Spotify, and it seems like people actually do click on the link. With Instagram, once they follow me, I don't find that they're clicking on the link. You can see like how many followers you're getting every day, and on Spotify how many more people are following me. And when I'm active on TikTok, I'm seeing that, like, again, very small numbers, but a slightly larger uptick in people who start following me once I post on TikTok versus Spotify. It might just be a coincidence so far. I don't have years and years of these things. I'm trying to do both, but they are time consuming. And what I really want to do is focus on the music. But you gotta, in order to punctuate everyone's mental space and get them aware of me, I have to be active. And so I'm trying.
Are there any sort of final statements you would like to share? So we wrap the interview up. Would you like to say anything in particular?
I'm just really grateful for you for reaching out. I'm really happy that you did and that we got a chance to talk. I'm really glad for the opportunity to talk to your listeners. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope we get to do it again.
I would definitely love to do it again in future.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I hope everyone just listens to my music, likes it, follows along. There's going to be more on the way. I'm really, really proud of the stuff that I've come up with. And not just proud of the stuff, I listen to it. Now I go and I listen to my music. I'm like, oh, I really like this guy. Oh, that's me.
We love that. Anyway, thank you for your time, Danny.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was great talking with you.
Thank you very much.